Hello and welcome to a special planet-eating edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoes.com, with me as your host, Chris Chaos Bringer McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me today to talk about the news that Hasbro have revealed their next Haslab project for the Transformers War for Cybertron line, and it's a big un, is Justin, taller than 27 inches, Bell. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. Earlier today, Hasbro revealed their third Haslab project on their Hasbro Pulse website. Following the success of 2018's Star Wars Jabba's Sail Barge, they recently revealed plans to do a full-size Cookie Monster from Sesame Street, and now have opened pre-orders for a Transformers War for Cybertron Unicron. The news came out of nowhere and the early images and footage look incredible. The Pulse website showed a video hosted by Hasbro Transformers Global Design Manager John Warden and Global Brand Manager Ran Sun, who explained that this Unicron project will stand over 27 inches tall in robot mode and over 30 inches in planet mode. This would make it the biggest Transformer release of all time and comes in at a whopping $574.99 before tax and shipping if you want to back the project. They require 8,000 backers for this one, and you will have about 48 days remaining at the time of this recording to get on board. The figure design takes heavily from his appearance in the 1986 animated film and will come with a stand for his planet mode. The features look very good as well, with an opening mouth that even exposes long teeth when rotated. Unfortunately, at the moment the project is only available in the US and Canada, but there has been talk about offering this giant beast globally after it is funded. The funding process will close on August 31st, 2019 at 11:59 PM EST. Justin, how many beans were blown when you saw this news today?
Holy cow. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I was in the middle of a meeting at work, and I was obviously, as I do in all my meetings, just glued to my phone instead of paying attention to the meeting. And I saw John Warden, post something on Facebook, and just saw the word Unicron with John Warden attached to it. I'm like, oh crap, what is this? And not realizing it was a Haslab thing. And then, because the Cookie Monster was the last Haslab thing, so I wasn't expecting another thing quite so soon.
I know,
but then,
yeah. That was
then
so
seeing
quick.
that, holy cow.
And it is gorgeous. I mean, the detail that's gone into the design of this toy is quite mind-blowing.
Yeah.
What are some of your favourite features we've seen so far?
I love the detail of the thing. I mean, it's just the kind of the etch lines of the sculpt are just incredible. And his little teeth, the moving teeth in planet mode are cool too, but the face sculpt is just insane. Just as, it looks just like the character from the animated series, and the animated movie, and I love the fact that they really went all out with the animated movie deco and made him look a lot like he looked in that 1986 film, and the fact that he's 27 inches tall, and it's absolutely crazy. There's fully articulated fingers. I mean, we've gotten, as Transformers fans, people have gotten kind of spoiled over the past few years with some of the larger, Fort Max and Devastator and
Metroplex and
Metroplex and
Trypticon.
all those guys, and yep, exactly.
And Omega Supreme coming soon as well.
Oh, that's right. I almost forgot about Omega Supreme, because when I saw that Facebook thing from John Warden, I assumed this was like the Titan class for this year, but no, Omega Supreme is still coming too. So, how does any Transformers collector fit all this stuff in their house? That's my question. It's just unbelievable.
Not a clue.
Yeah.
I still haven't opened my Fort Max.
That's one of the main things that is keeping me from going whole hog, and I still may, I don't know, but one of the main things keeping me from jumping into this is not necessarily, it's expensive, but it's not necessarily just the price tag. It's just, where would I put the thing? I don't really have a place for it, but it's just, I think it's sick.
It's the perfect response. I have seen some people already complaining about scale. I mean, it would have to be the size of a house or bigger to scale with Generations.
You know what?
It's mental, isn't it?
You've got an over 2 foot tall Transformer. Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, no, they're not going to be able to make an actual planet-sized figure that's the same size as Unicron in the movie. And the same people that are complaining, oh, it's not big enough, are complaining, oh my god, it's $600. Well, what do you want them to do? You want them to do like a $5,000 room-sized Transformer that nobody could possibly buy? I mean, you got to find the right balance. And I mean, even Metroplex, who was the Autobot city, certainly was not the size of a city either. So you've got to use your imagination. I know you're a 40-year-old man complaining about toys online, but use your imagination, all right?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking to me for a second there.
Oh, I'm talking to myself. Yeah.
I mean, do you think they will reach the goal, or is the price a little too high, as you mentioned just a moment ago about that? That the price itself is quite hefty?
I think they'll reach it. I don't know if it'll be quite as fast and aggressive as people think, because I know the sail barge took, right into the bitter end, and that's Star Wars, which I believe has a larger, as much as Transformers fans wouldn't want to admit it, as a much larger fan following than Transformers does. So granted, I think Unicron might be a little bit more of a focal point in the Transformers collection than the sail barge would be, maybe, but still, I think it might come closer to the wire than people think. People are very excited and ramped up now, and I'll admit, I'm pretty fired up about it, and I'm not one that would normally jump into one of these things. So they're doing their job well. We'll just have to see. The only flip side is that the sail barge has proven to be quite lucrative on the secondary markets. You might end up getting some dealers who are more inclined to support this one, seeing what kind of precedence is with the sail barge.
I agree with a lot of that, especially when we have to kind of throw some numbers out here. Like the Jabba's sail barge, they were looking for 5,000 backers at the time. Right. They ended up with over 8,000. It was like 8,810, I think they finished with. So they had a lot of, and again, I think it was only just over halfway going into the last few days, and then I think it might even have been the last day where it really took off and started. People just were like, okay, yeah, I'll go for it. And I was surprised at the end that it actually not only met the goal but surpassed it. So that was a real surprise.
Yeah.
Now this particular project, they're requiring 8,000 backers.
Yeah,
now we did mention that obviously Star Wars does have a bigger fan base. They only just crept over what Transformers what they want for this Transformers project to fund.
Yep.
So very interesting indeed. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a big ask. I think that's, you're asking a lot from the fans. And I think I saw somebody put some math together, and I think if you 8,000 times 575, I think it's like $4.6 million or something like that. It's asking a lot for a fandom that's probably not quite as large as Star Wars. And especially, if right now you said this is only available in the U.S., if they end up making it international, Transformers obviously has a huge following in Japan and China and that neck of the woods. So if they do make it international somehow, I think that would only help them.
Yeah.
But it's going to be tough. From what I hear, that's 8,000. Quantity is almost a full retail run for some Transformers. So I don't know. I'd like to think so, but they could be pushing their luck a little bit.
I think, when we talk about the Star Wars fan base, it is bigger, but in terms of a general fan base, yes, it's going to be bigger. But in terms of a toy collecting fan base, I would say Transformers is probably up there with... Because obviously when you think of Transformers
that's
fans,
a fair point, yeah.
I think it's the majority of those Transformers fans are toy-based collectors, or at least collect some of the toys casually. With Star Wars, I don't think it's the same way. I think it's more that you're a fan of the property and everything that comes with it, and then there's also a fairly decent, solid-sized toy collecting community in that Star Wars. But I don't think they'd be too far away from each other, possibly. Just a guess. Again, Star Wars probably does have an edge on it, because obviously toys are so synonymous with Star Wars, but at the same time, Transformers, it is so rooted in the toy line that it's pretty much like the... I don't know if it would be like how you would kind of rate the different elements of a fan base, but the toy element of the Transformers fan base is probably the largest one, isn't it?
Oh, you're spot on with that. That's a pretty astute observation, actually, when you look at the reach of Star Wars compared to the reach of Transformers. In Star Wars, the toys are always kind of a secondary aspect to the movies and the mythology. In Transformers, it's totally the other way around. The toys drove the whole thing, and everything kind of followed behind. So, I think you're right. If you kind of did, some Venn diagram of Star Wars and Transformers, I think the action figures, the size and scope of the action figure collectors would probably be pretty close within both fandoms, even if the Star Wars size itself is far larger, just because the larger majority of Transformers fans are made up of toy collectors.
Yeah.
So, that's a good point. I think, when you're looking at both, especially when you look at toy collectors who would be willing to pony up several $100s for a toy, I think you reduce that number even greater on the Star Wars side, where Transformers kind of has a track record, with Masterpiece and with, some of the third-party stuff of being able to sell Transformers at a relatively high price point. So that's, that kind of nudges it even further in the favor of Transformers. So maybe it's not quite as, as out of whack as I was thinking before.
Yeah, but again, it's hard to gauge that. And I'm sure obviously Hasbro have got closer numbers for that kind of
I would hope they did
research.
some analytics before they ran with this. Yeah.
They did nothing, research.
Let's just spend $500,000 on engineering and design the thing. I'm sure it'll do well.
This is the difference between a huge company like Hasbro and then some kind of anybody doing a Kickstarter, isn't it? I mean, you look at the crowdfunding thing, and I know this isn't necessarily crowdfunding. This is pre-orders and stuff, yeah. But at the same time, it's almost like just dressed differently, isn't it? But I mean, the fact that Hasbro can almost create the toy in front of you to show you what it would look like. I know some Kickstarters can do that, but for the most part, it's all design this and drawings and inputs because, obviously tooling something and even creating a prototype is costly. So, for Hasbro to be able to be in a position where they can actually knock something like Unicron up, like this, and basically have it on the precipice of ready to go in terms of tooling, then it's kind of like an advantage that the big companies have. But having said that, because I don't really think this is a crowdfunding thing, I think the pre-order thing does... kind of edge it more in a moral place, doesn't it?
So there's a little bit of a fine line of morality between a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar company and a small upstart place that's just trying to figure out a way to exist. And you've got to be careful as Hasbro, kind of how, where you come across on that line. But you got to know that a toy like this is never going to be sold at retail at this size or this price. And if you want them to do something like this is just the kind of format you have to accept it in. It's almost more of a direct-to-consumer kind of format rather than a retail format. And it's more or less a pre-order type of thing. But yeah, you do have to be careful.
Do you think they're restricting themselves, not doing a kind of global release? I know they're doing that kind of thing afterwards, like they did with the Jabba's Sail Barge. Like maybe they kind of get it out in a different way, but do you think they restrict themselves during this process by not going globally?
Yeah, and I don't know if they're restricting themselves or if something else is restricting them. I mean, I don't know if they might want to do it global. Maybe there's some kind of law or regulation or something that says they can't.
Good point.
But I don't know. I would think, if given their preference, they would probably rather do a global type of thing. So I've got to think there might be some other extenuating circumstances we're not aware of.
It was definitely about shipping for Jabba's Sail Barge, I think.
Oh, okay. That was all it was. Okay.
Or at least that's what seemed to be the issue, because obviously that box is so ridiculous.
Exactly.
I mean, imagine what this bloody thing's going to be like. Imagine the size of this one.
Crazy.
In any case, will you be getting on board with this yourself, or do you have to sell one of your kids first?
Well, I might sell one of my kids regardless, but
all of them at this to get this in, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Like I said before, it's not necessarily whether it's not necessarily a cost thing, more of a space thing. So I don't really have a place for it. If I had a place for it, I would absolutely jump in on it, just because, I mean, I don't have a huge Transformers collection, but what I do have displayed on a shelf is kind of the themed characters around the 86 movie. I've got a Springer, I've got an Ultra Magnus, I've got a Hot Rod and Rodimus and RC. So, I mean, that's a piece of Transformers lore that I'm a really big fan of. So in that way, it kind of fits pretty nicely with that, whole display, but it's just, I don't have a space for it. So unfortunately, I probably will not be jumping in on it, though. Just not for a lack of desire.
Just gut the whole house, take all the rooms out and put it in the middle of the space that's left. And finally, do you ever think Haslab will be used to create something for Joe fans? I mean, we seem to be kind of going down the list of the big the big numbers like Star Wars, Sesame Street, which I didn't think was even an option, but yeah, there it is. Cookie Monster looks amazing, and now obviously Transformers. So, do you think Joe will have some shine at some point down the line, or do you think possibly not?
I'd like to think so, but I mean, the question is going to be whether or not they think it's financially viable. I mean, that's the biggest hitch, because I think
there's still a lot of money going into building that initial concept to show you. Yes, absolutely.
A lot of work goes into just the preparation part of it, so they have to make sure that's going to pay off. So if they put 100 hours and tons of sculpting resources into developing something that doesn't go anywhere, then it's just kind of thrown away money.
Yeah, which they don't like to do.
Exactly.
Justin, thanks for jumping on to chat Unicron. I really appreciate it, buddy.
My pleasure.
Whatever. That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Justin Bell. See you next time, and as always, proceed on your way to oblivion. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce podcast or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force. Cobra is taking over this month with Cobra Convergence 4. The entire month of July will be turned blue thanks to Hooded Cobra Commander 788 and a plethora of G.I. Joe related YouTubers, podcasters and much, much more. So make sure you check them out over the 31 days of July. All hail Mighty Cobra.